Hello everyone, I am Shalini Upadhyay. Over the next few minutes, I'll give you an overview of my thesis, which is titled From Protection to Resilience: Investigation into Cybersecurity Protection Motivation and Coping Mechanisms in SMEs. We are all too familiar with these reports. Media often grabs high profile cyber attacks, while small businesses often go unnoticed like collateral damage. Here, I share with you some snapshot of data, recent data points for you to appreciate the extent of this criminal activity. Global average cost of data breach is estimated to be around $4.5 million, or stated otherwise, it's $150 per lost or stolen record. Another statistic for India is that around 1 million ransomware detections were reported in 2024 itself. So, cyber attack is the latest profitable avenue for criminals. Alongside geopolitical risks and climate change risks, cybersecurity is being consistently cited as top risk across all large-scale surveys. We live in a very hyper-connected world where staying isolated and offline and safe is not a choice anymore. This is because cyber attacks are egalitarian and they do not discriminate by organization size. Furthermore, there is near consensus confirming escalation in frequency as well as range of cyber attacks on SMEs in recent years. Empirical evidence is clear that SMEs lag far behind their larger counterparts when it comes to self protection and investment. Moreover, while it's true that all institutions stand to suffer financial blows and reputation damage in the aftermath of a serious cyber incident, for an SME, any laxity in cybersecurity becomes potentially lethal. Thirdly, research in cybersecurity is concentrated in large organizations essentially, and this is despite the contribution of SMEs to world economies in terms of employment opportunities, income generation, and domestic saving. While we all have a vague idea of what cybersecurity really means, for this thesis we have used CISA definition, which came up in the post-pandemic surge in cybersecurity. CISA defines cybersecurity as the art of protecting networks, devices, and data from unauthorized access or criminal use, and the practice of ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The CIA triad of information security. SME, what do we mean when we say SME? SME is a very wide term with variable definitions across different countries, which vary along employee size and annual turnover. For this thesis, SME is loosely reflective of that community of organizations which is characterized by limited resources, informal management style, multitasking employees, dependence on an individual decision maker who's usually the owner, and low adherence to established procedures and practices. This thesis is structured along three studies. Study one is a standard literature review that captures current posture of research on cybersecurity practices at SMEs. It identifies latest research themes, gaps, and limitations, and also provides guidance for future research direction. Study 2A, it proposes a theoretical framework which provides perspective on how SME owners interpret, process, cope, and act on the cybersecurity concerns facing their organizations. It introduces a multi-stage model with a set of propositions explaining role of various factors. Now, study 2B further validates and modifies this above model and its propositions using narrative analysis as the research method. Here, I'll quickly take you through findings of each of these studies. Findings of literature review were bucketized along three dimensions: internal firm characteristics, local or micro environment, and macro environment. Now, by their very nature, small firms focus on immediate growth and survival, thereby according very low priorities to security related matters. Often, their need for speed and their limited access to financial resources, technical expertise, and human capital, it leaves them underprepared and sometimes unprepared to tackle cybersecurity challenges. Moreover, because of no formal structure, security decision making is usually ad hoc and largely driven by general attitude and personality of the business owner. The study also revealed over-dependence on local IT vendors for advice as well as maintenance of all security-related products. The credibility of these vendors, it remains uncertain and a question mark. In terms of macro environment, SMEs, it's characterized by a very known laxity in security compliance requirements and regulatory calls. Awareness too is very limited, and there's lack of faith in legal remediation practices, leading to underreporting of cyber incidences by SMEs. Final security posture of SME owners, it can be understood as a 2 by 2 matrix. Many resourceful owners who are not motivated enough, they remain in denial of the impending cyber threat. Often, and mistakenly, they believe that they have nothing to lose and they are too small a fry to catch any hacker's attention. Some owners, they simply surrender themselves to probabilistic nature of cyber attacks as they believe that nothing they can do which will give them 100% protection. There are others also who understand the criticality of the threat, but they lack in resources, and so they take refuge in whatever institutional support is made available to them in terms of training or subsidies. And lastly, the top right quadrant, it belongs to those SMEs who actually take the problem head on. They face it with all their resources and will, which is where we want to take all the SMEs. As far as the gaps identified, one main factor limiting generalizability of research studies in SMEs is the fact that not all SMEs are equally impacted by cyber threats. Digital maturity and criticality of data handled by each organization, it significantly impacts their unique security needs. A 10 employee organization cannot be studied together with a 100 employee organization for its security practices, though both may be SMEs technically. Thirdly, most of the current research, it looks at technology side of cybersecurity. It covers challenges for technology adoption and limited risk awareness for SMEs, while overlooking incidents management, behavior patterns, psychological apparatus, and damage control expertise. Um, it is evident from literature and study one now that SMEs they adopt a complex, intuitive, and often reactive approach to cyber risk management. The second study it addressed these very limitations identified in literature and tried to understand as to what's really going under the hood. Why do SMEs exhibit diverse behavior even while operating under comparable constraints? It also tried to secure the human factor in research by asking questions like what processes determine SME self-protective behavior outcomes. The study proposed a new theoretical framework which builds on extended parallel processing model. It is a theory which originally developed in the health communication and research context. This model explains how people respond to threats by evaluating two main factors, the seriousness of the threat and their ability to respond effectively, all of which is done under the backdrop of fear. Several additional factors were also incorporated in the model, like coping adaptiveness, awareness, and peer pressure. As this phenomenon is still exploratory in nature, we used a quantitative research method called narrative analysis to validate model propositions. Here, narratives are captured and the content is studied so as to extract key themes and insights while understanding that cybersecurity is socially situated and it's not technically isolated. We recruited two groups of participants, experts and direct users for us to draw these insights. In our analysis, a new unstudied theme of prior experience with cyber incidents, it came up prominently alongside all the other themes which were studied in our literature view, which were fear, knowledge issues, confidence, motivation, and peer influence. Now, prior experience, it also is closely linked to the idea of cyber resilience, which was the focus of our literature review. Cyber resilience is a more holistic and proactive approach. It attempts to destigmatize cyber victimization in itself. It promotes a safe to fail approach, which can deal with adverse, unknown, and uncertain problems where every attack is withstood to the best of capability. It's then taken as an opportunity to learn and evolve to be better prepared for next assault. The cybersecurity in SMEs, it's a matter of national and economic concern, and a prime contribution of this thesis was that it advanced the understanding of cybersecurity as a socio-technical phenomenon beyond mere technical adoption. It also advanced foundational understanding of cybersecurity by introducing a new model alongside identifying broad themes for next phase of research. It guided design initiatives for product companies. It also offered deep insights for policymakers to enhance security adoption and practice. Before closing, I must thank my RAC chair, Professor Satish Krishnan, my RAC members, Professor Rajesh Upadhyay and Professor Payal Anand. I'd also like to thank TEC chair, Professor MP Sebastian, and external examiners whose inputs helped me massively give the thesis its final shape and form. Thank you.